We are going to get to it in just a second. But Caroline Fenton, we will start the show like we start every single show. It's time for 3 points. What is on your mind, my friend?
Yes, absolutely. Hope everyone had a very fun and very safe Labor Day weekend. And I know it was a good one for one Naomi Osaka because she is headed to the quarterfinals at the U.S. Open after taking down Coco Gauff in the 4th round at Flushing Meadows. And look, Coco Gauff struggled through her first 2 rounds, even went through tears in her 2nd round. But obviously, she did find a way to win, which has become Coco Gauff's calling card, finding a way to win even through imperfection. She was navigating, Coco Gauff rather, was navigating some serving woes after hiring a new coach a few months ago to tweak her swing. And that has been a big root of the cause of some of her struggles over the last couple of months, some of her struggles in the first 2 rounds at the US Open. But this time against Naomi Osaka, that was not her problem. In fact, her serve was actually a strength. Instead, Gauff made 33 unforced errors. Osaka, on the other hand, she only made 12. Coco Gauff said it's been a really difficult run since the French Open, but she said, quote, "I know the improvements that I need to make, and I feel like I'm making the right decision by making them." Osaka, on the other hand, she is headed to her first Grand Slam quarterfinal in almost 5 years, and she's playing some of her best tennis right now. Against Gauff, she won 32 of the 38 points that she served, 15 of 16 when the serves landed in, and never faced a break point. She even said she's having so much fun playing right now, and the fun might continue because every time that she's gotten to a quarterfinal of a major, she's won the whole dang thing. And what a redemption story for a young player who's faced a lot of adversity. She came out and talked a lot about how she's been battling depression and anxiety. She's faced criticism from the media and the tennis world. Coming forward with mental health issues is not something that is historically accepted or celebrated by the tennis community. She has, been overcoming and vulnerability in the tennis world. She's facing motherhood. So we're all witnessing a lovely Naomi Osaka resurgence. And I know for me, Fitz, I'm cheering for Naomi Osaka.
I feel like the entire collective tennis community is, and you're right. It looks like it's fun for her, which is actually alarming and fun to see. So we'll keep you updated on that. Let's get to my first point of the day. Look, it's the NFL Week 1. It's finally here. And Sunday Scaries is a real term, particularly if you're a Rams fan, but it just got a little less scary. Now, instead of drinking your fears away that Jimmy G might be your quarterback, you can drink in celebration responsibly, of course, because you know that Matt Stafford is expected to start week 1 versus the Texans. That, according to Sean McVay. Now, if you've been living on a boat and you didn't know what was happening over the course of the preseason, let's remember that back issues have troubled Stafford throughout the course of the preseason, and we've wondered what that would mean for him moving forward into the year. As we've said on this show, backs don't typically get better as you get older. So what will it mean for Stafford throughout the course of the season? Only time could tell that. But for right now, for a team that truly does believe it has Super Bowl aspirations, you can't believe that those Super Bowl aspirations were going to be attained with Jimmy Garoppolo as your starting quarterback. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. That would not put them amongst the elite in the NFC. But now you got to rewind all the way back to the end of last season and remember what we saw. The best of Matt Stafford with the best of Sean McVay makes the best of the Rams a Super Bowl contender. So now from day 1, week 1, at least Rams fans can feel like they have a shot at the Super Bowl going into this year. Time will tell us whether or not Matt Stafford can stay healthy. I'm nervous about that. Rams fans are nervous about that. The entire collective NFL population is nervous about that and what it means for this Rams team. But at least coming into the beginning of the season, we'll finally see him on the field and we'll get to see exactly how he looks. All right, Caroline, we have wasted enough time to get to the number 1 story, and we all know what it is. It's the shellacking. It is the embarrassment. It is the absolute thrashing. It is the butt kicking of epic proportions that we stayed up late last night to watch. We just watched TCU take Bill Belichick and North Carolina behind the woodshed and absolutely humiliate them. North Carolina didn't look ready. They didn't look like they were ready to outcoach anybody. Nothing about this program looked good. North Carolina got their butts whooped last night, including the legend you see right there. Belichick didn't look any happier at the end of the game than that picture looks right there.
My goodness, that is a scary looking picture, but I think that's how all North Carolina fans felt last night. I mean, look, the opening drive, I thought, ooh, this is going to be a great game. Look at North Carolina cooking 7 plays, 83 yards, and 30, including a 39-yard pass from their then starting quarterback, Gio Lopez. I thought North Carolina was going to be cooking. And then TCU scored, and then TCU scored again, and then North Carolina turned the ball over, and TCU turned that into 7, and then they scored again, and then they scored again, and it just got that embarrassing. It just got that brutal. Just looking at the sheer numbers. And of course, we don't box score scout here on this show, but I think looking at the numbers just can articulate how much of a whooping that really was. 48-14 final score, obviously, and TCU outgained North Carolina 542 total yards to 222 total yards for the Tar Heels. On the ground, TCU just absolutely ravaged that defense. 258 rushing yards, 7.4 yards per attempt. Just North Carolina's 50, only 1.8 yards per attempt. It was brutal, Fitz. And what I think was most telling to me, and look, North Carolina has a ton of new players, so much overhaul on the coaching staff, essentially zero continuity from last year to this year. So I think it's fair to expect this team to struggle at least a little bit and at least early. But what is Bill Belichick's calling card? Defense. Bill Belichick won 2 Super Bowls as the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants and was coaching one of the best defenses in the history of the National Football League. And that's the defense that we saw last night by a Bill Belichick coach team. A defense that essentially let TCU's offense do whatever the heck they wanted. It was sloppy. They didn't secure the ball. There was zero ball protection. And there were even, the clock on the bottom of the screen. I know this wasn't defensively, but I think it just showed how brutal everything was for North Carolina last night. There was a clock that popped up that said North Carolina has not completed a pass since 8:12 p.m. Eastern time. I thought, well, how bad could that be? I had no idea what time it was. I looked down at my phone. It was 9:26 p.m. Eastern time. Brutal night all the way around. Turnovers, rough offense, couldn't run the football, couldn't stop the run, all the way around for North Carolina. And I don't think that you could have had a worse debut for Bill Belichick as the head coach at North Carolina than what we saw last night.
This is part of why I don't believe Belichick will work in college, Caroline, because everything you just said speaks to what North Carolina is going to be up against this year. And instead of just yelling about Belichick and how bad it sucked, I want to have a little bit of nuance to this for a second. Mm-hmm. You make a great point that this is a wildly different roster than it was, with a wildly different coaching staff and obviously a different tone to the organization, to the program. Everything is different today. The problem is in college football, that's every single year. When we start talking about the way that Oregon has had to rebuild their roster, when we talk about the number of transfers that are coming in and the number of new players for a team like Ohio State, like you could go up and down the list. When you are a prominent college football program, one of the things that you have to accept as part of your reality is change. One of the major differences between college football and the NFL that I don't think has gotten enough conversation in Belichick's transition is that you don't simply sign somebody to a 3-year contract and now you've got 3 years to teach them the Patriot way. You've got months to teach a kid whatever the Chapel Hill way is going to be. And right now, it looks like the Chapel Hill way is how do you go out and get your ass kicked on a football field? That's what we learned last night. That's the only thing that we saw last night was we saw a team get outplayed, outcoached, out-adjusted, out-hustled, out-athleted. Like they got beat. Make your checklist up and down, and they got beaten every single one of them. And the problem is, Caroline, if this continues, what do you see in college football? You see a mass exodus. You see a mass transfer portal. You have to be able to rebuild and reimagine your entire roster in college every single year. We have zero proof that that is something Bill Belichick is even slightly remotely capable of doing.
And since we've seen, Bill Belichick post Brady, and I know that that's, kind of feels like ancient history at this point, we've kind of started to question the legacy of Bill Belichick. We've questioned how good of a coach he really is or really can be right now. And I know we overreact to week one. We overreact to single games and single weeks in college football and in football in general all the time. But there was nothing that I saw last night that would give me optimism that Bill Belichick can turn this ship around. Now, prove me wrong. I will say, though, I will give credit where credit is due. I think the lone light at the end of a very dark tunnel that was last night for the North Carolina Tar Heels was Max Johnson. Max Johnson came in for Gio Lopez after Gio Lopez really struggled. The first drive that North Carolina came out and had, I thought was great. I thought it was excellent. They moved the ball very well. After that, though, the offense couldn't get anything moving, and Gio Lopez was a very big part of that the passing game just could not get going. Max Johnson comes in. And he was, I think, the lone bright spot. It was a 10-play, 80-yard touchdown drive. We saw a 16-yard completion from Max Johnson, turned around a beautiful, beautiful 39-yard completion for Max Johnson. And Max Johnson has had a really difficult road in college football. He started his career at LSU, and because of injuries at the quarterbacks ahead of him in the pecking order, he had to come in and play for LSU in really big games. And he transfers to Texas A&M, couldn't win his way to a consistent starting job, so he transfers to North Carolina. And last year, in North Carolina's first game of the season, he suffered a gruesome leg injury to the point that he almost lost his leg. He battled back from that injury. He got back into playing shape. He got back into a North Carolina uniform. And I think last night just proved that the resilience, the fighting back. I'm rooting for Max Johnson. I really am. I think that's the bright spot that you can talk about here is Max Johnson battling back from all of the adversity that he's faced, whether that's winning a starting job or whether that was from injury. But I think that's it. That's the only bright spot that you can really feel here. I don't know if it's, how optimistic North Carolina fans can feel when they had all the optimism in the world of Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, is coming in and is coaching this team. I think that that optimism balloon has deflated completely at this point.
I mean, I saw Twitter X before the game talking about the most anticipated coaching debut in college football history, and I'm not sure that that's hyperbole. This game was put in a standalone window on a Monday night because the world wanted to see Belichick, right? And let's not get it twisted. You're right. That Max Johnson portion of the story is great. It also happened against, backups from TCU at that point? So there is an element here and it's TCU. I'm sorry. Like in a month, they play Clemson. North Carolina plays Clemson. When North Carolina plays Clemson, I would have expected this. If this had been week one and, man, you're taking on one of the best teams in the country, that's fine. Taking on TCU. Like, I just don't, and I know this sounds like I'm trashing TCU. I'm not, but TCU is not at the same level as a top 5 team in college football this year. So if you're North Carolina, you just had the most anticipated coaching debut supposedly ever in the sport, which means that by just, what's the Latin phrase you like? By default, ipso facto, whatever. That we now have.
By default is not Latin. That is
no.
English.
You use the ipso facto,
Ex post facto.
Yeah, thank you. Skinny latte, 3 pumps sugar-free vanilla. We're saying the same thing. So expo latte thing. If it's the highest anticipated college football coaching debut in history, that means that last night was the most disappointing college football coaching debut in history. And just put that into some level of that is the most disappointing debut we've ever seen. And we're going to continue to see a ton of Belichick in North Carolina in these standalone windows because it's such a sensational story. And I'm sorry, if we end up with a world where the Hulu documentary is more interesting than the football team, then we have a problem in North Carolina. And after last night, it's inarguable that more people are interested in Hulu this week than they are in what this football team's going to do next because it was trash.
And that is so anti-Belichick. And by the way, I love that expert trolling job of the TCU football Twitter account. One of the best social media teams in all of college sports. But that's so anti-Belichick. The fact that the football product that we're seeing on the field is such a train wreck that we can't wait to watch the behind the scenes, the documentary crew that's picking up all of the conversations that we haven't gotten to see. That's so anti-Belichick. That is so something that I think Belichick 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, would roll his eyes at just the idea that the football is so bad that we are so gluttonous to see the train wreck behind the scenes. 10 years ago, Belichick would have hated the idea of a documentary crew, picking up all of the behind the scenes conversations. 10 years ago, Bill Belichick would have shuddered at the idea at losing by, 49 points, whatever the final score differentiation was. He would have shuddered at that idea, at not looking prepared in week one, at getting embarrassed on national television in a standalone window when everyone is watching. I think this head coaching debut is matched only by Prime in his debut at Colorado. And we're talking about one of the greatest athletes of all time, one of the greatest coaches of all time. Like, that is the kind of, rare air that we're talking about here. And I tweeted this out last night, but I stand by it that I don't think that we've seen anyone go from goat to joke as quickly as we have seen Bill Belichick go, and how quickly we have seen Bill Belichick's reputation slide. Because it's not just the on the field product. It's all of the extracurriculars. It's the girlfriend. It's the, CBS Sunday morning interview that his girlfriend was intervening with. It's how bad the football really is. It's the documentary that just seems so anti everything that Bill Belichick stands on. It makes me think, Fitz, like someone that we have grown to know over the last 40 years in football, somebody who had the Patriot way, somebody that has built a legacy like this. I don't even know who Bill Belichick is anymore. I don't even know what this program is built on. And to question a Bill Belichick-led franchise just feels so foreign to me.
Yeah, we won't get to find it out on the field, but we will in a Hulu special. All right, from laps that they need to run in North Carolina to actual victory laps. We'll take a victory lap for one Caroline Fenton next because LSU did the damn thing. We'll tell you about it. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. That would be Ross Dellinger's top 10 this week. Should be noted at number 1, LSU. Number 2, Ohio State. I'm looking there. Oh, Clemson is at 8. That's only significant because last week, I think Ross had Clemson. Maybe as a national championship contender. All right, let's get into it now. Yahoo Sports Daily sees Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. I'm trolling Ross, and I really shouldn't do that because Ross is great, and we want to make sure he comes back on the show. Maybe it's just hedging his bet a little bit there, but LSU goes all the way to number 1 after a win that, I don't know, Caroline, how far across the state of Carolina could they hear you screaming as LSU took down Clemson in the dramatic fashion that they did this weekend?
You may have heard me in Connecticut. Like, that's how loud I was. Maybe even louder than my cheers was my sigh of relief. Like, that's what it felt like. Not only was it excitement for my team, of course, you see the LSU helmet behind me. I
Go
graduated from LSU. Go Tigers. I'm a huge LSU fan. It's my favorite team in the world. But just the heartbreak that I think all LSU fans have felt over the last 5 years in week one. That's right. LSU has not won a week one game since 2019 when Joe Burrow was the quarterback. It's been a long time coming, and it has been over the last 3 years since Brian Kelly got to LSU. Losses in the most heartbreaking fashion. Second half collapses, defensive flubs, missed extra points, muffed punts. Like, it has truly been just such a gut punch. So to see LSU go out against a top 5 team on the road in a really rowdy and raucous environment and get a win and look like the better team for really the better part of 4 quarters while doing it was such a, first of all, sigh of relief, and gave me so much optimism. And I think the rest of this LSU fan base so much optimism about what this team can be, because we've talked all offseason about how LSU has put together a championship contending coaching staff, and Joe Sloan is the offensive coordinator, and Blake Baker and his body of work as a defensive coordinator, that LSU invested so much money in the transfer portal to bring some of the best transfer portal players to Baton Rouge. We've talked all offseason about how it feels like LSU has all of the pieces for a championship contender, and the first hurdle would be Clemson on the road in the bugaboo that has been week one for LSU over the last 5 years and under Brian Kelly. So I think it was just such a statement. It was a massive statement win. And look, I got up here in front of this mic on this show talking about how I didn't think that LSU was going to be able to win this game. First of all, if they've lost the last 5 week one games, why would I think they could win the 6th? Well, they proved me wrong. I also thought that this was a matchup nightmare for LSU, because I thought that Clemson had one of the best defenses in all of college football. If you look at Clemson's defense, they have Sunday players, first-round talent all riddled across that defense. But Garrett Nussmeier only got sacked once. And he was protected by an offensive line that is replacing 4 starters. So I think for me, what I learned about these two teams, maybe Clemson's defense isn't as elite as we were sold that it can be. Maybe LSU's offensive line is better than we thought that it could be. And the biggest takeaway, I think, for me, Fitz, LSU has a defense. LSU has a vintage LSU defense. Over the last few years, I think that new college football fans might think that LSU historically is an offensive team. That is not the case. In 2016, 2017, 2018, LSU was winning football games 13-10 because of that defense. And finally, that defense is back. So I think that all LSU fans, rightfully so, are feeling this overwhelming sense of optimism that if they can match a veteran quarterback in Garrett Nussmeier in a solid run game led by Caden Durham and an elite defense, which is what I think we saw on Saturday night in that Death Valley, then why can't LSU be not just a playoff contender, but a championship contender? They did it against another championship contending team in their own house.
Yeah, I think both of these teams walk away saying, okay, we learned a lot about ourselves in this matchup. And one thing we asked last week is, are they both playoff contending teams, win or loss? The answer to that, clearly, yes, I think. But it was a surprise to me the Clemson offense wasn't able to get going a little bit. Like, Garrett Nussmeier handled that environment, that crowd. One thing I talked about last week was I thought they needed to start fast. They didn't really have that opportunity, which meant that crowd was just thunderous into the 4th quarter of the game. Nussmeier handled it beautifully. I got to give him a lot of credit. And these are two teams that really just came out and knocked the snot out of each other repeatedly. The College Football Playoff Committee is going to give a ton of value to this win by the end of the year. I think that's evident. They're also going to give value to the loss, even from the Clemson side of it. I don't think this was not the sort of the positives, certainly their opportunity, what LSU was able to come in and just accomplish in handling that crowd and handling that defense, I think is a statement. Defenses were ahead. In the big games over the course of the weekend, defenses were ahead. I don't know if that will normalize, But man, I look at that picture right there, and I do have to ask, like, Dabo's got to find a way to win some of these games too, right? Like Clemson's got to find a way to come out and beat one of the best teams in the SEC. There was opportunity at the end of this game for Clemson to still get a win. They just couldn't make the plays they needed to make down the stretch. So I give a ton of credit to LSU, but I'm also looking squarely at Clemson and saying, man, you got to figure out how to win these sorts of games, because the ACC isn't going to teach you as much about yourself as this one game taught you.
And look, we'll talk with Josh Pate here in just a moment. We'll talk about the full weekend that was in college football. It was a great weekend. I think what we learned was veteran quarterbacks will give you an edge over first-time quarterbacks, right? We saw that with Florida State and Alabama.
Who's been saying that for months? Who's been saying that for months? Like, you come into these games, you got to have somebody
that's been saying that for months.
Like, it's just, if we're buying on...
You have.
But if we're buying, like, this is the problem. We spent so much time trying to figure out how, not we, you and I, but collectively, everybody spent so much time trying to figure out if Arch was going to be the answer, right? Like, what if young quarterbacks simply can't succeed quickly in modern college football? I think it's okay to make that blanket statement that you are going to always have an edge for the first 6 weeks of the season, to me, if you're playing somebody that's played a lot of college football.
Especially week one. We saw that with Tommy Castellanos and Ty Simpson, the Florida State in Alabama. We saw that with Notre Dame and Miami, that Carson Beck didn't throw the death pick that CJ Carr did. CJ Carr threw that pick. Miami turned that into a field goal. What was the difference of the final score? 3 points. But in this situation, in this matchup, it was a battle of two veteran quarterbacks. And it was fair to say, well, the veteran quarterback that looked more like a veteran was going to give his team that edge. And I think that was what we saw with Garrett Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik. Garrett Nussmeier could step up and make some of those big throws in must-have situations, and Cade Klubnik didn't. Without looking back at, the play-by-play and looking back at some of the highlights and looking back at some of the game tape, Cade Klubnik didn't step up and make a big-time kind of throw until Clemson's final possession of the game. He had a big 39-yard completion, and that's when I think, the butts of every LSU fan got really, really tight there. But ultimately, LSU's defense made those timely stops when Clemson's defense couldn't. I think that was the difference there. That if you're talking about veteran quarterbacks, well, Garrett Nussmeier was able to make some of those plays that Cade Klubnik didn't. Now, I do need to give Clemson a whole lot of credit. I still do think that Clemson can be a playoff contender. I think that Clemson absolutely can still win the ACC. Now, we'll see what Florida State turns out to be, what Miami turns out to be, even Syracuse. We saw some good things in their matchup against Tennessee, but I still think that Clemson is a contender for the ACC. So if Clemson wins the ACC, they are in the college football playoff. I don't think this derails Clemson's season entirely, but it is fair to bring up some question marks and maybe some areas that aren't as elite or aren't as strong as we thought it would. And it starts with the starting quarterback, and it starts with the defense as well. Do you still think that Clemson can be a championship contender, Fitzy?
Yeah, I think, look, Clemson's going to get right by the end of the year, and they have all year to work on these nuances. And I think you're right. I think Clemson does win the ACC. I think Clemson goes to the college football playoff. And then you've got a very experienced quarterback on an offense that's had some time to get some rhythm. Week one is just so tough, Caroline. And that's why one of the questions that we asked last week, that one of the conversations we had on this show, was which coach would trust their quarterback the most. And I think across the plane, including this game, like you mentioned, Cade Klubnik not really making that throw, it felt like it was a safe game plan so often from Clemson throughout the course of this game. And that speaks to something to me. I just, one of the issues, as much as we all sit here and we love to just junk all over preseason football in the NFL and how terrible it is, one thing that you have when you hit week one of college football and you've had no preseason is everybody's got to learn to trust everybody. And it just didn't happen fast enough in Clemson. I think if they'd taken some shots, even if those shots didn't work out, at least they would have had to been respected by LSU. They didn't, and that LSU defense came for them. Both of these teams are still national championship contenders, but you certainly can't walk away from this weekend not feeling a little different about Clemson and a little different about LSU. We'll break down the rest of the weekend. It was a massive weekend in college football, including one of the most stunning results we've seen in a long time. Boy, the tide might be rolling in the wrong direction quickly. We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
You mentioned the great week before the game. Just how much do you self-scout the preparation before games, and are there times as a coach where maybe you notice during the week that things might not be going the way that you want them to?
You said, what do you mean, great week?
A great week. You said a great week of preparation.
For this week, you're saying, or are you
Sorry,
referring to last
going
week?
up to Florida State before that game.
I said that?
You said that, yeah, before.
Oh, just,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Kalen DeBoer just having a bit of a moment there as he breaks down a great week of preparation. It's a great week for us because Josh Pate joining us now. You can test out Josh Pate's college football show here on Yahoo. Like, we are now Yahoo teammates, which means now I can slap Josh on the butt and it's allowed. Josh, appreciate you hanging out with us early in the morning, my friend. Let's just start with Kalen DeBoer and the awkwardness that we just saw there. Like, is Kalen DeBoer going to make it through this season for Alabama?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
What else can I say? I'm going to say yes. I don't know what to make. I've given myself, 96 hours at this point to try and make something of Saturday. So at this point, all right, everyone's watched the replay 37 times. Everyone has heard everyone else's opinion. They've developed their own. You just showed the press conference footage. Not only did we hear from Kalen DeBoer, we heard from both coordinators in Tuscaloosa. I still don't know. And then I was texting some of my buddies. I mean, I got massive SEC group chats that are just up in flames right now. Hey, what could they do to change your mind this Saturday? Nothing. It's UL Monroe. Nor, candidly, could they do anything the next week against Wisconsin. Because if I believe that what we saw in week 1 is in them, it's in them. That means even if they go over the cliff the next 2 weeks, eventually they're going to have to go on the road again. Like they had to in Neyland the year before, like they had to in Norman, like they had to in Nashville of all places, and like they did in Tallahassee the other day. And eventually they're going to face quality competition capable of making you quit if you're not strong enough willed. I don't know if they're strong enough willed. This is not, by the way, a definitive statement. I am saying I don't know intentionally because I went and watched them. I watched them scrimmage twice, once in the spring, once in the fall. I thought it looked like the best team in the country. I picked them to win the national championship. So clearly either my eyes lied to me or we got such an outlier of a result in week 1 that everyone's confused. I just don't know how you watch that in week 1 and then wipe it from your memory. Fitz, like I'm telling you, even if they win the next 8 or 9 games, that'll still be in the back of my mind. Every time we break a Bama game down, LSU week, Auburn week, they could go to the SEC championship game for all I care, and everything looks righted like Ohio State post-Michigan last year, and I'll still know somewhere in the back of my mind that result is baked into this team. It may seem like ancient history, but if you've ever exhibited those characteristics once, it can crop up again. So, I mean, nothing less than going on to win a championship would completely wipe that from my memory.
Yeah, and the sloppiness, the what looked like the lack of effort, it all felt so anti-Bama. So obviously that's going to be the story of the game. But are we not giving credit where credit is due? Like, is there a world that exists that Florida State should be the story, that Florida State is a good team?
Oh, I agree with you. So the way you said it, I agree that not enough credit's being given to Florida State. But for them to be the story, I don't know if you can watch Alabama play the way they did and just say, well, FSU's the story. Now, if you want to do, like we have a policy on my show, you talk winners first, regardless of the outcome. Then talk FSU. Like that, we did it Sunday night. We talked FSU. I think it's a miraculous turnaround. I don't care if the opponent lied down and asked you to walk over their limp body. It's a big turnaround for them because if you were to have watched Saturday and you had both players wear potato sacks instead of uniforms, you would have thought Bama was the one that was replacing coordinators, overturning their entire roster in pure desperation mode. You would have thought FSU was the one that was pretty established, ready to make a run this year. So that's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. I went down to FSU in spring. We sat down with Norvell, and I left there, Caroline, thinking to myself, boy, he said all the right things. And I'm sure he believes them. But he has no other choice but to believe that he made the right hires and the right roster moves. I was of the opinion that even if he did make all the right moves, it wasn't just going to take off overnight. It wasn't like the bonfire was just going to be ablaze overnight. And I thought it was a shame that they don't have Penn State schedule. They don't have 3 tune-up games, then a bye week, then their first big competition. They've got to face Bama, an angry, motivated Bama, a more talented Bama right out of the gate. And then they did that. So yeah, that's a massive story. It's just like Ohio State's the story to me over Arch Manning. But at the same time, if you talked Arch Manning for 6 months, or in this case, if you talked Bama for 6 months, I don't know how you look at the glaring result that's kind of antithetical to what everyone expected and not say, whoa, there's probably a 1A, 1B headline here.
Yeah, you just brought up the one man in America who I think is more grateful than anyone for that Bama results, and it's Arch Manning, because it has become a little bit more of a distraction from what Texas did at Ohio State. And look, I always said it was unfair to expect Arch Manning in his first real start as Texas's starter to go on the road to the reigning national champions in one of the most difficult places to play in college football and expect him to look like a Heisman contender. But he was a far cry from a Heisman contender. What is your major takeaway from what we saw from Arch Manning and Texas on Saturday?
That it's not Xbox, it's real life. So I took a very, very bold tact on this whole Arch Mania thing over spring and summer. It got me a lot of heat in Texas for whatever reason. People kept asking about expectations. They'd ask, you could do Dallas radio, Houston radio, whatever. They'd ask, what are your expectations? And I said, I think he's going to be a pretty good to a really good player. And that always hit me back. Well, don't you know he's the Heisman favorite? And I'm like, well, you asked me what I thought, right? Are you trying to tell me what you think? Or are you asking me what I think? I think he's going to be a pretty good to really good player, because what I get sick to death of in sports in general, but especially college sports, because they are college age kids, it's still a developmental level of the sport. What I get sick to death of is you build these expectations. The player doesn't. Arch never made a prediction about himself. He never set the Heisman odds board himself. You make the prediction, it doesn't come true because it was way too inflated. And then instead of looking in the mirror as a sports writer or a commentator or whatnot and saying, I was dumb for overinflating what I expected from this kid, people tend to look at the kid and say, you're a bust. He's not a bust. Your prediction was a bust. He was just always going to be what he was going to be. Now, having said that, I was very disappointed in the overall performance. His accuracy is very poor. I thought he played hesitant, not scared. I saw some people say he played scared. He's not scared. He just played hesitant. It's first time seeing a lot of that stuff. You just mentioned it. It's not East Texas A&M that he was playing. It was Ohio State on the road. That's a really tough place to play. All that stuff. Having said that, his issues are fixable to me. I think Sark knows that. His tone was a lot more measured in his postgame than Texas fans were. I think they can get it corrected. I believe they'll get it corrected. I also believe you'll see a rapid scaling up in production because not everyone's Ohio State on the road, like you said. So I think it'll be okay. It's just good to get the expectation bubble in check earlier rather than later. And now you can actually go to work at truly evaluating Texas and Arch Manning instead of doing this whole it's almost like you're hyping and promoting a pro wrestling event where the outcome is predetermined and it's entertainment, it's a showcase. It's sports. It's real life. That's how real sports work. It's not always aesthetically pleasing.
Especially in the modern college football climate where there's so much change constantly. You just have to be more accepting of the fact that things are going to look weird. Let's go to one of the other results that looked weird to some. Miami goes out and just out physicals Notre Dame. I think that was pretty surprising to a lot of people to see Notre Dame just sort of moved on the line of scrimmage a lot. Are we giving Mario Cristobal enough credit for what he's done to turn Miami around at this point?
I think so, actually, Fitz, because there's a healthy dose of criticism that's been dealt to him as recently as last year. They should have been a national championship contender last year. They weren't because, frankly, they hired poorly on the defensive side of the ball, and that side regressed a la LSU a year or two before that, where you've got a Heisman caliber quarterback and you got nothing on the other side. So he's showing up knowing I got to score 40 every week for us to have a shot. So I think he's gotten a lot of credit for recruiting. He deserves it. I think he's gotten a lot of credit for the intensity that they run that program with, appreciating Miami, trying to represent Miami the right way, the authentic way, and he deserves it because they have. All right, so now that was the criticism. To his credit, He went and hired a really, really high-level defensive coordinator out of Minnesota in Corey Heatherman. It looks like they also really overhauled through the portal the secondary, which was the big storyline to me, more so than Carson Beck. The big storyline to me with Miami, we talked about it for a month and a half, was I kept hearing out of Miami, just inside fall camp, hey, our secondary is going to be a strength. Not only is it not going to be a weakness, not only is it going to be a net neutral, it's going to be a strength because we went and got the right players. We paired them with the right coordinator. So you hear a lot. You hear a lot in fall camp. So I was willing to wait and see on that. Limited sample size, first time starting quarterback against Notre Dame. It looked good. Tackling looked worlds better. So I never had a doubt about Carson Beck. That was one of the most weird things. People just believing that guy forgot how to play football. If he was healed from injury, which he was going to be fine. They got a half a dozen pass catchers to replace from last year's team, but like Carson Beck's good enough to make pass catchers. So they'll be fine there. They got a great offensive line. They got what should be a high-level ground game. If anything, I thought they still left something on the table in the run game the other night. So I don't even think you saw Miami's floor at all. They were +2 turnovers winning that game close at home. So that thing goes either way. I still think the world of Notre Dame. I just think you saw 2 top 10 teams. Everyone believed that about Notre Dame. Maybe now it's validated a little bit more about Miami.
Michigan. It's the richest 18-year-old in America. Under center for them and Bryce Underwood. Look, he looked solid in his debut with the Wolverines. Justin Haynes in his first game in a Michigan uniform, he made his presence known and in a big way. I feel like I've talked so much about in the Big Ten, it's Ohio State and it's Penn State. And maybe unfairly so, I'm ignoring Michigan. But what do you think their potential ceiling could be?
I think it's lower than that of the teams you just listed. So I think you're right in talking about it like that. I've spoken about it like that. Some combination of Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, little drop off. I think Michigan may have their own tier. Then there's this other drop off. The whole tier 2, tier 3 conversation in the Big Ten is its own show, by the way, has been for a few years now. But I don't know that they have the horses at wide receiver. His leading receiver was a tight end, I think, the other day. It's New Mexico, whatever. They're going to go to Oklahoma this weekend. You're going to see a true freshman starter on the road against Brent Venables in Norman. So that ought to be fun. We're going to go to that game. But in the long run, I have believed, and I still believe, that what you'll do with Michigan this year is you'll watch them, and there'll be some wow moments, because that right there is a wow college football player you're looking at on the screen. But I also think there will be many outcomes where they're close, hard-fought losses, and you say, boy, they're just missing something. And that something is going to be skill at the wide receiver position. Kind of like a Penn State loss recently. You look at it and you say, that's a good-looking roster, good players. They're not a long way away. They just needed dynamic difference makers out wide. I don't know that I think that team doesn't have it. I'm going to say I don't know. I think that team doesn't have it. And so what it'll do is there'll be enough proof of performance from Bryce Underwood to where they can just go scorched earth in the portal. I think it'll be very, very quick turnaround in next year. Like I'm viewing this entire year through the prism of 2026. I think that'll be a national title contending type team in 2026 because I think receiver talent will see plenty enough to say, yeah, I want to go there.
You guys can check out Josh Pate's college football show, obviously, with Yahoo Sports, hanging out with us. Josh, you're everywhere right now, dude. Like, just you're on every show. You're across every network. It just feels like you're all over the place. It's fun to watch your meteoric rise continue. But I should remind people they can watch you hanging out with us as a Yahoo Sports TV teammate, right? Like, so tell everybody how to check out the show and how to live along with Josh Pate.
Don't do the latter. Don't live along. That's just a dangerous proposition. However, if you want to watch the show, Josh Pate's college football show, just search it. It'll be wherever you consume your stuff. And if it's not, that means we didn't do our job and it's not on you.
Look at that. Just glad you're a teammate. Love your work for a long time. Glad that we get to be buddies on the same network at this point. Josh, have a great day. Thanks for the hang. And we'll see you after Wisconsin beats Alabama and total chaos happens everywhere. Come back, hang out with us. I'm calling it early. Let's go. Thank you, brother.
It's just a sadistic tag out. I appreciate both of you.
Thank you so much. There's no doubt that I'm an agent of chaos. All right. Speaking of chaos, Brady's out here creating it with some of his comments about young quarterbacks. We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
practice, that's what I look for all the time. When a quarterback throws a touchdown pass, I actually watch to see who he goes and celebrates with. Because what did I do? I looked for my offensive lineman every time. I went down and celebrated in the end zone with my teammates every time. I wanted everyone to feel like they were part of the success. I told the linemen, we're all running to the end zone and we're celebrating as a team. Because I think that's way more intimidating than a quarterback doing his 6-shooter guns and pointing up in the crowd and doing all that other that's very self-promotional, but it's not about winning. And I think winning in football is about a team, always a team attitude first.
That's Tom Brady with Pro Football Focus talking about winning and the team attitude that he looks for in celebration. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, hanging out with you on Yahoo Sports Daily. And Caroline, I watched this, and I think sometimes we have to remember that the best athletes in the world have a hard time relating to other people that aren't some of the best athletes in the world because they didn't do it the same way. And I hear Tom say this, and that's fine, but Tom is a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders at this point, and according to multiple reports, has a huge say in at least how that roster is going to be constructed. He disputes some of that, but it sounds like he is a huge part of their process. I hate the concept of looking at a player and deciding that the way they celebrate becomes a reason that they would be taken off your board. It speaks to the way Tom did it, which works for Tom, but there's a million ways to peel an apple, and they're all right if you end up with the apple peeled at the end of the day. It feels strange, and it's a reminder that Tom lives in a bubble that's wildly different than most people to me.
Yeah, and I will play devil's advocate here that when you're an owner and a general manager and your livelihood, the future of your employment depends on the success of a 22-year-old, you do have to nitpick every single thing they do, whether it's right or wrong. It does feel incredibly crazy and incredibly weird, but I was told by someone that a quarterback that was a very highly rated quarterback coming out of college just a couple of years ago, that he was taken completely off of one team's board because that player took a bag of chips off of the bowl that was laying on the table in the interview room without asking. They said, we don't want our quarterback to be disrespectful like that. Like, that sounds so wildly crazy to me that he was laying out. He didn't ask for it. He just took it. And they said, nope, that's not our guy. So when your livelihood and your future is essentially placed in the success or the not success of some of these players, you have to nitpick everything. You have to ask their childhood hairdresser and their neighbor's housekeeper's pool boy's sister's dog keeper about how respectful a person this guy is, because you have to make sure that there's not a single stone that goes unturned. I do wonder, though, because there was a sit down that Tom Brady did not so long ago where it felt like he was sending out a very not so subliminal call out to Joe Burrow, because he was talking about, as a quarterback, it's your job to do your own walkthroughs and to take the pay cuts. And, if your defense is bad, if your defense is holding you back, that is your job as a quarterback to fix that. Felt like it was a call out to Joe Burrow. I do wonder here if he is thinking of any player in particular, whether it's a player that he's scouting now in college football, whether it's a quarterback that he may have passed on in this past year's draft as he's advising all of the Raiders brass. I do wonder if there is a player in particular here, but it does sound crazy. It does sound way too picky. It does sound like an old man yelling on his lawn, but isn't that kind of what owners and GMs have to do when evaluating players?
To a certain extent, but I also think that's part of why draft evaluation oftentimes goes so awry. Frankly, the tape is the tape. And if you believe somebody can play, you can believe somebody can play. Now, 20 years ago, I think you really had to worry about, how will success and money change this player? But now you have a modern college football athlete that's coming out. As you mentioned earlier, Bryce Underwood is getting paid a ton of money. By the time he eventually tries to make it in the NFL, should he have that opportunity, he will already have tens of millions of dollars in the bank. So even how does money change an athlete is something that there's now proof of concept for. Part of the reason I think the draft process becomes so wildly inexact is people start assigning so many personal things to the tape that they see, and then it suddenly changes the way you see it. Now, yes, you want to take a look. And as Mike Golick Jr. told me years ago, when he was prepping for the draft process, his draft prep coach told him, when they ask you what you love other than football, your answer has to be nothing, because you don't want to give them a single inkling of a doubt that you're only about football. Like, stuff like that is stupid and it's real, but it shouldn't be. I mean, there's a reason Michael Jordan was never a great owner in the NBA, right? Like, sometimes when you're Tom Brady, nobody else is going to be Tom Brady. Like, when he talks about the walkthroughs he would lead teams to, or like, look at that very example. He talked about the fact that he got the players together. He did a walkthrough. He threw out the game plan and said, here's what we're doing. Okay. If a young quarterback in today's NFL did the exact same thing, threw out the game plan, did his own walkthrough without the coaches, and implemented a new game plan, we would be sitting here saying that's a reason that player went outside the box and isn't somebody you could trust. So, like, it's lose-lose. If a quarterback can play, a quarterback can play. And holding them to the standard of Tom Brady is just, it's the reason that no other coach can ever be Belichick, even when they got out of the Belichick tree, because you aren't Bill. Nobody else is going to be Tom. And I think Tom has to realize at some point that he's just different. And the way he did it worked for him. But that doesn't mean that it had to work the same for Peyton Manning. That doesn't mean that Joe Montana had to be the same. That doesn't mean that Terry Bradshaw had to be the same. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean Patrick Mahomes has to be the same. Mahomes is not TB12ing his way through success, and it seems to be pretty good for him. So I don't want Tom Brady to take a Mahomes off the board because he doesn't like the way the guy celebrates. I want him to evaluate the thing that he's more capable than anybody of evaluating: simple quarterback play.
Yeah, and it's fair to ask, like, can Tom Brady relate to young quarterbacks now? It's a different NFL. It's a different college football. That in college, you are a certified celebrity. I don't know if, like, you just brought up Bryce Underwood at Michigan. I don't know if Bryce Underwood can just go out to eat like a normal kid, like a normal college student, because they are certified celebrities. I also think it's fair to ask, like, can Tom Brady relate to anyone? Because Tom Brady's process is just so different, to the point that Tom Brady wouldn't eat strawberries because he thought the sugar content was too high, and then blah, 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 all this stuff, the TB12 method. So I've always said, I don't think Tom Brady would be a very good quarterback coach or a very good football coach, because Tom Brady just sees things and processes things differently. That the way that he might coach, that he might get frustrated and say, well, why can't you understand this? Why doesn't this come naturally to you? And it's because things come naturally to Tom Brady that don't come naturally to especially the everyday person, much less the everyday player. Maybe there is a translation to Tom Brady's ownership in being the same way. Was Tom Brady's process, Tom Brady's approach to the game, so on a different level than any other player that there's just not going to be a single player that he evaluates that lives up to his standard?
There is an element for me when you think about the quarterback position. How many great quarterbacks have turned out to have a tree of great quarterbacks that they discovered, right? Like, John Elway certainly brought in Peyton Manning, which was great. He brought in a vet that could play, but John Elway didn't go out there and draft the quarterback of the future for the Denver Broncos. It took Sean Payton coming in to do what looks like that answer is. If it was simple as I'm going to hire a great quarterback to find a great quarterback, then teams would be paying Peyton Manning $100 million to come in and just find a quarterback. The way that Brady has approached the game makes him one of the best of all time. And that's incredible. And I'm not reducing that in any way, shape, or form. The problem is you cannot expect that is your method works for everybody in this process. And it concerns me that he's now being looked at as that person for an organization. Like, hey, the Raiders are putting their hope in Tom Brady's ability to evaluate. How many times have we heard smart people say, hey, if Brady's speaking on quarterbacks, then we trust. And that's fine. You should. Obviously, his resume gives you every reason to trust that. But if you start hearing that there are lines in the sand, like if Michael Jordan only wanted to draft people that had the same whatever athleticism that Michael Jordan had, he would never be able to draft anybody. So I understand that these are all caveats for Brady and the way that he goes through his decision-making process. But to me, how you celebrate a touchdown, that can be one small component of something, but also, how are you with the guys when they just need somebody to talk to at the facility? Like, shouldn't that also matter? Like, do you even know the guys' names? Like, I talked to people that played with Dan Marino during the peak of Dan Marino that joked about the fact that they were on his team for 3 years. He never knew their name. So I just think that there are so many elements to how we evaluate That's the most difficult part of it. All right, we're just getting our conversation going. Obviously, we have a lot to get into this morning, a lot of college football, a lot of NFL, and we're going to talk to somebody that can break it all down for us next. Superstar Josh Downs is going to join Yahoo Sports Daily. From Chapel Hill to Indy, Josh Downs is a Colt. That tweet a couple of years ago from Carolina football congratulating their guy on becoming the Colts guy. He's our guy right now as he joins us right now. Josh Downs, wide receiver, star wide receiver for the Colts. Also, half of the Downs to Business podcast, his brother, the other half of that. We'll get into that in just a second, but we were just talking about North Carolina football. I hate to have to ask you this morning, but how we feeling? I mean, last night was a rough night, Josh. How we feeling, buddy?
Yeah, what's up? Nah, I mean, it was kind of a disappointment last night to watch. They started out hot though. I really was like, okay, I see the energy, I see the change, but then it's just like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong yesterday. So, I mean, obviously it's the first game of the season and new coach, a lot like 70 new players. So they're gonna have to gel. I feel like some of the hype was like, but I mean, 70 new players, new coach, they're gonna have to gel. They're gonna have to see who the leaders are, see who the best players are, and they're gonna have to form that. So I mean, I expect them to bounce back this week.
Yeah, week one can always be a fallacy in college football. We've seen that every single year. And I know that you said back when Bill Belichick was hired that you were super excited about the hire, that you thought it was going to be great. So, how would you define success for Bill Belichick in year one, considering there have been so many changes in Chapel Hill?
Yeah, I mean, similar to my head coach in college, Mac Brown. He came in after they were had a couple losing seasons. He flipped the program around. He went 6-6 the first year, but you could just tell that there was a lot more excitement in the next few years. We went to the Orange Bowl, won like our division in the ACC, went to the ACC championship. So I feel like for Coach Belichick, it would just be like maybe even a step above that, or just even just first year just matching that, maybe 7-8 wins this year, and then next year take it to the next step, 9-10 wins, and then keep going from there. But I mean, to think that, I mean, it's possible to go 11-1, but I feel like just going in there, winning season, getting a bowl game, that's a win for this first season, and then just keep building from there.
Let's have a happier
can't
college
go,
football. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Fitzy.
Let's have a happier college football conversation, Josh. All right, because your brother is your co-host on the Downs to Business podcast, and Caleb, obviously, he had a good weekend. So walk me through your emotions when you're watching your brother and you're watching Ohio State take on Texas. Everybody's yelling and screaming about the game. What's it like for you watching him on the field?
Yeah, no, it's surreal. I mean, like just from watching him play youth ball, He's always been the best player on the field, but seeing him on that stage, like playing 1 versus 3, huge matchup, Ohio State versus Texas it's surreal to me. I'm sitting in the stands like a true fan. Like I'm not even watching the game like I play football. I'm into it just like everybody else. I'm screaming and yelling at the refs. Like I'm looking out for him every single play, seeing where he is, and I love watching their team play. I mean, last year they won the national championship. And I mean, this year you see that they haven't skipped a beat. They had a great win Saturday, and I'm excited for the future of this team and of course his success and his future success in the NFL.
Yeah, you're just like us, sitting in the stands, probably like sitting on your hands, trying to just not be anxious. So, what's more nerve-wracking for you, watching your brother play or getting ready for your own football game?
See, it's crazy. It's definitely watching my own brother play. I mean, I feel like I've played football my whole life. Obviously, he has too, but I feel like when you're just kind of watching like a family member or like your favorite team, you just have a different sort of like heartbeat, different sort of anxiousness. Like even like I'm a big like MMA boxing guy. Like when I watch a big fighting match, like I'm like really into it. So it's like, but when I play, like I just feel like I'm just like ready to go. Like, okay, I'm prepared for this moment. God gonna take care of it. Everything's done. So for me, playing is peaceful, and of course there's a little bit of nerves, but watching my brother definitely brings me more nerves. I'm watching their game Saturday like nervous. So yeah.
I mean, he's going to be in the league in a second. So when you guys face off, what kind of numbers you putting up against him? Come on.
Ah, I don't even like to talk numbers, but I just know that I mean when I get my opportunity against him, I'm big bro gonna cash in for sure. So I'm ready for that.
Are you the
I mean,
better athlete?
obviously,
Will you say that? Who's the better athlete in the family?
Better athlete. I say that I can. Um, I think I'm the better athlete. Like overall, like just being an athlete, just by a little though. He's a good athlete, but I think like if we had a sports like who could play the most sports and like also just testing like vert broad 40 like who if they did like a collection of all those things and mashed it up into a score, I think I would have a higher score, but he may think different, but I think my dad would say I'm the best athlete in the family.
I'm clipping this off and sending it to Caleb. So that way,
Yeah.
Downs to Business, your podcast will be must listen to
Yes.
podcasting as you guys go at it of who the better athlete is. Obviously, brother rivalries are huge, but you also have another rivalry happening in Indianapolis. Daniel Jones, your starting quarterback, he went to Duke. You obviously went to Carolina. Is
Yeah.
there going to be like a Duke Carolina bet that you're paying off this year? Are you talking trash to Daniel Jones? What does that look like?
Well, no bets. That's not our thing. But what's it called? Yeah, he went to Duke and Riley Leonard went to Duke. So of course we
Yeah.
talking trash every couple of days about that game. And best believe when the game comes, I don't care what the record is for the Tar Heels. They could be. I don't know when the game is. They could have a great record. They could have a not so great record. I'm still riding with the Heels all day, every day, and I'm talking trash all week to both of them quarterbacks, but not too much because he still gotta throw to me on Sunday, so I gotta keep it. I gotta keep it PG.
Speaking of throwing to you, let's talk about that for a second. You've had a lot of guys throw you the ball since you got there with the Colts. How does it impact you as a wide receiver to have so many different quarterbacks?
I mean, of course, you want like one quarterback, your whole career or just a couple years, but that's just been the situation we've had here. But I mean, we've had a lot of good guys throwing the football: Joe Flacco, Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, and now Daniel Jones. So I mean, it's just like developing the rapport with the guy and building that relationship, building that trust, and then going from there. I mean, all those quarterbacks are good, great players and gamers. So at the end of the day, it hasn't been too tough to get in there and just play ball.
Your coach Shane Steichen is an offensive-minded head coach. How has his addition kind of helped you as an offensive player and especially navigating so many changes at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Steichen, like you said, offensive coach. Yeah, he kind of just shoots it to you straight, tells you what he wants. Shows us a lot of examples of past guys, past greats doing it, and then he helps you implement that to your game. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously he's come in here. He's had a group of great quarterbacks, and he's able to put them out there and develop them and let them go ball. So I'm excited to see this season. Daniel Jones been working hard, had a great camp. I'm excited to see what he does.
Is the world ready for the Jonathan Taylor bounce back season? It just feels like it's primed to happen this year.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is, he had what, 1,400 last year. Like he had a crazy, like, great sneaky season that, like, a lot of people don't even realize. He had like 1,400 yards, and he still, I think he missed 3 games or 2 games. Like, so he don't miss those games. He might have 1,600, 1,700 yards still. So I mean, I just think he's building off last season and just going to take it to a whole new level. So I wouldn't even say it's a bounce back year. He had 1,400 last year, which a lot of people don't do. So I mean, I'm just expecting him to just keep going.
See, Josh, this plays directly into my hands here because on this show last week, I picked the Colts to win the division. And everybody's just giving me a lot of grief for this. Feels like it's outside the box. So back me up, brother.
Yeah.
Tell the world why everybody is sleeping on the Colts this year.
Nah, obviously the whole situation with the quarterback thing, people might not think we can get it done, but I just know that we've put the work in. We got a lot of skill in this building, and we got a great quarterback room, and I'm excited to see what we do because I think that we're just as good as anybody, and I really believe your prediction is going to be correct, and we going back your word. That's what I'm gonna say. So yeah, they'll see in a week.
Absolutely. And I think so much of the part of the formula for championship teams is chemistry and it's relationships in the locker room. What is that chemistry like with you in the wide receiver room? And I'm looking at last year's numbers. You, Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr., you all got your fair share of the rock. So what is your relationship like with them in that entire receiving room?
Man, this receiver room, we so close. I ain't like we joke around, play around all day with each other. We really like brothers. I say that. Like we got a great group of guys. I'm close to all of them, and everybody's intertwined with each other. We go out to eat every single week. We have a great receiver coach who has a great relationship with all of us as well. So I mean, it's all love in that room. There's no selfish ambition in there, and I mean, yeah, I'd love to see all my guys eat, and I mean, it's the same that goes for them to me. So at the end of the day, whoever's getting the ball that game, just ride that hot hand and keep going from there.
Who sets that tone? That, selflessness? Is it from you guys yourselves? Is it from the quarterback? Is it from your offensive coaches? Is it from the organization? Who kind of sets that tone of, look, whoever gets theirs, as long as we get a win at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like just a team thing, just leadership on the team kind of thing. Like, can't be selfish to win games. Like, not every game is going to be your game, and as you get older, you kind of just mature and realize that. But I mean, I would just say leadership on the team influences that, and then it just trickles down.
All right, so I'm going to manifest more greatness for the brothers at this point. Your brother, let's say Heisman finalist, top 5
Heisman.
draft
Okay.
pick. I'm bringing it all in. Like, I'm giving the family everything. How do you keep a
Yeah.
leg up? What do you have to accomplish this year to have a leg up at the Thanksgiving table when he just like plops his Heisman down and he's like, boom, I won this. How do you keep a leg up in the brother competition?
Man, it's hard with a brother like that. I mean, he won like freshman of the year, ACC champion, national champion. I just gotta I mean, obviously I'm in the NFL, so I'm where he wants to go. So I just gotta keep making plays where I'm at and just keep going for real. He's looking to get up here next year or the year after that. So obviously I'm trying to just keep my foot ahead and just keep making all the plays that come my way. But I love to see I mean, as a big brother, you want your little brother to be better than you because you did it before him. And I feel like if your little brother is not doing as good as you didn't set a good example, in my opinion. So at the end of the day, if he go out there and win the Heisman, I feel like, I mean, that's my fam and that's my little bro. So I'm more proud of him winning that than like myself. Like that's like a real piece of my heart right there.
And you can listen to these two, the Downs to Business podcast. These two
Yes,
brothers,
ma'am.
Josh Downs hanging out with us and Caleb Downs, Ohio State safety as well. I'm a younger sister, so like I'm always holding it down for the younger siblings, and I know that I can appreciate every single piece of advice that my sister gives me since she's lived through it. Do you think is the best piece of advice that you could have given your brother or have given your brother?
Yeah, I think when I was growing up, it was probably my work ethic, just how I used to just still do, but just work to get better at whatever I'm doing. And I mean, he tells me that he kind of saw that from me, and he took it and ran with it. And it was the work ethic piece, just going out there, doing extra, doing more, just trying to be the best possible. And then he saw things I did right, things I did wrong, and he went from there. I mean, won't get into too much detail of the stuff I did wrong, but that's pretty much what he did. And then I mean, he's a phenomenal player. He got something special in this game. Like I remember when we were kids, his first ever game, he scored like 6 touchdowns in the first half, and it was just like, it was kind of just like, is this normal? What is what like, hold on, 6 touchdowns first half, like let's calm down though. Like, we got to see this again. Next game, 6 touchdowns again. We're like, okay.
Oh my
And he was like
gosh.
scoring like 6 touchdowns over and over and over. We were just I was just like, I'm like, okay, this dude different. Like, I think he like least touchdowns that first year was maybe like 5 or 4 in a game. And he was ridiculous, but it was like that for a minute because he was an offensive player before he played defense. And yeah, that I'm getting so much into that old stuff. But he switched to defense. And I thought he should have stayed on offense, but obviously I think safety longevity is better than running back longevity. So he made a smart decision.
Yeah, I mean, Josh, look, at the end of the day, nothing's normal. When you got 2 brothers that are both NFL caliber athletes, nothing y'all live is normal. Like, that is a special thing. I'm just saying. All right, everybody check out the podcast. Obviously, I can't wait to listen to it ourselves. Downs to Business is the podcast. It's Josh, it's Caleb. It's 2 guys that can tell you more about ball than most of us will ever know. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you hanging out. Best of luck this season. When you guys win the division, come back, hang out with us. Remember, I called it first. That's all I'm saying. I'm taking my victory lap early, man.
Hey, yes, sir. Appreciate you. And yes, y'all tune into the Downs to Business podcast. YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Go get it right now.
That's awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us, brother.
It's good.
Yes, sir.
Thanks,
Appreciate y'all.
Josh.
It's great stuff from Josh Downs. We'll keep it rolling. News for the Steelers. What are the expectations in Pittsburgh? We'll tell you next. Yahoo Sports Daily. It's Yahoo Sports Daily. Hour number 2 is here. We haven't had the chance yet, so we'll get into it like we always do. It's time, Caroline Fenton, for 3 points. Caroline, what is on your mind, my friend?
Yes, absolutely. So, an old story that was kind of brought back to the surface recently. We all remember last summer, right? When Shohei Ohtani was being investigated for sports gambling and his former interpreter was convicted for stealing $17 million of Ohtani's money, placing bets on games. Well, Matthew Boyer, who was the bookie for Ohtani's interpreter that used to place those bets, he sat down with ESPN's investigative reporter, Tisha Thompson, and he kind of shed a little bit of light on exactly how everything unfolded last summer. And he recalls the exact moment that he knew it was not, in fact, Shohei Ohtani that was placing those bets. He was at an Angels game. He was looking at all of the bets being placed through, him as a bookie. And he saw a bet come in from Shohei Ohtani's account. He was also watching Shohei Ohtani actively pitching on the mound for the LA Angels. So he said, I knew it wasn't Shohei that was placing these bets, that he had a hunch that it was, in fact, Shohei's interpreter. But he did say that he wondered how much Shohei really knew, and if he knew more than he really let on to what was happening behind closed doors and the bets that were being placed. Here's my thing. Can we move on from this? Can we move on from this? Can we stop the fodder? Can we stop the wondering? Can we stop throwing out, subliminal and strange messages that he wondered how much that Shohei really knew what was going on? That he's had his day in court, that Shohei's interpreter is serving the time for the crime that he did. That I think it's unfair and totally unjustified to wonder and to, throw these accusations out there if there really is no tangible evidence to say so. Is it possible that Shohei Ohtani is so invested into baseball that he doesn't know what's going on around him, and maybe he's just placing the wrong people around him that are taking advantage of the money that he's being made? But really interesting and fascinating behind the closed doors of what happened with Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter and the bookie who will now be serving a sentence for the crimes that he committed. But can we just move on from this with Shohei Ohtani?
I mean, Caroline, like at the end of the day, a convicted felon that's about to serve prison time for something he did is giving us maybe statements that I watch a lot of Law and Order, and every single thing he just said in Law, I can hear Sam Waterston in my mind, Jack McCoy, standing up and saying, objection, objection. I'm just like, okay, cool. You think maybe he knew something because you've just got a good gut feeling? Like, work through that in prison. I don't understand why this is like. It sounds cold and callous, but like, you did your crime, do your time, and if you have fact on Shohei, I will just remind all the conspiracy theorists in the world, the Department of Justice did a full investigation. The Department of Justice has no need to skew their investigation for Major League Baseball. There's no big win for that. So if there had been a reason to send Shohei Ohtani to jail, they would have found it. They didn't. Moving on to my first point. My first point, you can tell I'm worked up about Shohei and his gambling, apparently. Now, back to injury news in the NFL. Devon Achane will play week 1 against Indianapolis. At least he's returning to practice. He is on track to play. Now, look, we've never hidden the fact that we love our fantasy football. It's a big part of how Yahoo Sports is part of your lives every single day. For Yahoo fantasy owners, this is the best news you could possibly get. Devon Achane needs to be in this offense, and frankly, the numbers and the split show that Devon Achane needs Tua Tagovailoa to be healthy. Let's remember that the Dolphins, a team that many people, myself included, seem to be kind of out on this year, when they're healthy, are still an offensive mismatch for everybody. This has consequence to every fantasy owner out there trying to figure out what to do with the speedy running back and what his ability is. I will remind everybody, though, it's early in the season, right? Like, if there's ever been a reason to be a little bit nervous about the number of carries he'll get, how much they'll use him, the fact that he's been dealing with injury, comes back into week 1. We all want Devon Achane to come out and have a massive game. I want him to have a massive season, though. And if that means we need to be a little bit calculated early in the year, I'll just remind everybody that that could pay off to have big dividends late in the season. Not a lot of trust for Miami, but let's see if week 1 they can sort of explode onto the scene again and remind us how powerful that offense can be. Which brings us, Caroline, to our top point, and that is an extension for Jaylen Warren, a 2-year extension from the running back in Pittsburgh. Talking about running backs, they lock him up. He was going into the last year of his deal. And now all of a sudden we're looking at it saying, okay, it's an extension, gives him 3 years on this contract. They're set at this position. Are we buying that the Steelers' offense this year is going to be the type of offense we can really bank on?
I don't think so. And, can we bank on it? I think is a kind of an open-ended question. Can we bank on the Steelers being a top 5 offense in the National Football League and they're going to be putting up 35 points per game? No, I don't think so. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, as currently constructed, be good enough to win one of those 38 to 35 type of games? Sure. Can they do it on a consistent basis? I'm not willing to bet on that. I think if there's going to be any sort of MVP for this Steelers team this year, it's going to be the defense. And that's how this Steelers team is constructed. They want to win games defensively. And the reason why I know that is because over the last 4 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been top 5 in the NFL in defensive spending. The Pittsburgh Steelers have invested more money into their defense this year than any other team in the National Football League. More than 60% of the Steelers' total cap is allocated to the defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers offense is going to be fine. I don't think it's going to be dormant. I don't think it's going to be the type of team that's going to be, impossible to watch. Of course, obviously, the Steelers offense, as long as Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback, it's going to be a story. But the way this Steelers team is going to win games is going to be defensively. They don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. They don't have the offensive firepower to keep up with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're going to win games defensively.
So you've got the defense as the fantasy football MVP of the 2025 Steelers, which I genuinely appreciate. I think that's a very fair statement to make. Jaylen Warren is the exact reason I hate playing in deep fantasy football leagues. Like when we talk about fantasy football MVPs, for me, I play in a lot of fantasy football leagues, Fantasy Football Live, by the way, FFL. You'll be able to check out every single Sunday. It comes back this Sunday. I will be sitting in that host chair again every Sunday from 11:30 a.m. Eastern to 1 p.m. Eastern right up to kickoff. Love fantasy football. I play in multiple leagues. Jaylen Warren's the reason I hate playing in 12-person leagues. Because, if you got to have 2 running backs, that means you need 24 running backs. If you're walking in to your season and Jaylen Warren somehow from your drafting is RB1, you're done. It's just not going to happen. He's a fine running back. It's fine. He's a good running back. But if you're really looking at production and you're saying, man, who's that epic guy? It's not wrong. We just talked to Josh Downs, and he talked about the fact that there's this perception that Jonathan Taylor is going to have a bounce-back season, even though he went off for 1,400 yards last year. There's no perception in my mind of Warren going in for 1,400 yards on anybody this year. So, look, he's fine. And that's just the method of the Steelers this year. The Steelers are fine. And Caroline, when you talk about the ceiling for the Steelers this year, to me, the best case scenario is 9-8. They're an okay football team. That's going to be a massive expectation of popularity and conversation. But the ceiling for the organization, ceiling for Tyler Warren is or Jaylen Warren, I should say, wrong Warren. Jaylen Warren is fine. The ceiling for the team is fine. This is just going to be a mediocre football team.
It just kind of feels like a 9-8 team because that's what they've been. And maybe that's a total cop-out for me to say, well, they're just going to be what they've been, but I don't feel like there's anything that should make me feel differently about that. But I always say it's unfair to just say, okay, this team is a 9-8 team. Okay, this team is a 10-7 team. I went through before our show the Steelers schedule, and I wrote off, okay, the games that I think they're going to win. Then I'll throw in a couple of swing games here and there. I'll say they split with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll say they win both games against the Browns. I lean toward the Ravens sweeping the Steelers team, but I'll say, okay, they get a win against Detroit later in the season. That I'm giving them the gimmies, and I'm giving them the games that I think are some swing games. I came up with 9-8. Even then, when I felt like I was being fair, but also on the generous side of fair, I came up with a 9-8 season for the Steelers. That's not a bad season. I think the Steelers can still make the playoffs at 9-8. So I think that is a fair expectation, but I think more their ceiling is winning a playoff game. It hasn't been an issue for the Steelers to get in the playoffs. It hasn't been an issue for the Steelers to stay above 500. But what has kind of been that bugaboo? What has kind of been that monkey on the Steelers' back over the last couple of seasons? Not making the playoffs, but winning a playoff game. So ceiling isn't expectation. Ceiling is, okay, this is where I think your team is going to cap out. This is the best possible scenario for this team. I think the best possible scenario this year for the Steelers isn't just making the playoffs, it's winning a playoff game and potentially losing in the divisional round of the playoffs.
I don't think they make the playoffs, so I'll take 9-8 as the ceiling. All right, so who's the most important piece of the Steelers' offense in 2025? For me, it's DK. And this ties into Aaron Rodgers and some of our conversation. Like, Aaron Rodgers is going to find somebody he can lean on. Wide receivers has still had a lot of production, even with the washed Aaron Rodgers coming in. So I think if you're talking about the most important piece of this offense, it's DK. If DK can get comfortable quickly with Aaron Rodgers, he can still put up big numbers. They're paying him to do that. I think he does have a chance to be an important part of their offense in real football and in fantasy football. He's one of the few people on Pittsburgh's offense I'm comfortable with.
I was listening to an interview that Aaron Rodgers did, and he talked about how much trust and chemistry he and DK have. So I don't disagree with you in the slightest, but I'll throw a different one out there. Another new addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll go Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith, obviously offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, have a history. Arthur Smith was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee when Jonnu Smith started his career there. They have familiarity with one another. Arthur Smith wants to use the tight ends. That's such a massive part of his kind of West Coast style kind of offense, is using the tight ends. Jonnu Smith is a great tight end, obviously with history with Arthur Smith, but Jonnu Smith is also coming off of the best season of his career. 884 receiving yards for the Miami Dolphins last year. So while Jonnu Smith maybe had some not so great years in New England, coming off of the beginning of his career in Tennessee, he's hitting his stride at the right time, and pairing him with an offensive coordinator that knows how he ticks, and also this Pittsburgh Steelers offense that might feel less than explosive. Aaron Rodgers could look a lot to the tight end, for some of those kind of short yardage situations.
I'm going to put my Halloween troll costume on early and just remind you that what you just said is very true. Jonnu had the best year of his career when he got away from Arthur Smith as his offensive coordinator.
In Miami.
Oh!
I know.
Okay. So what is success for Aaron Rodgers this year? Because I'll be honest, I think success for Aaron Rodgers is just staying healthy and not look like the eye test. I don't want to watch, I keep saying this to you, but I don't want to watch Fat Axl Rose, right? So I don't want to watch a shell of Aaron Rodgers running around, not really sure what to do with the ball, throwing it, looking awful. Like, my eyes want to see some prime Aaron Rodgers. So if he just stays healthy and manages to make it through the season, I actually kind of think that's success. I don't have great expectations for Aaron Rodgers this year.
Isn't that so sad that we're talking about that? A back-to-back MVP not that long ago, and we were saying the expectation is just don't get hurt. But you're not wrong. I'll go even further than that, though, and say that the success for Aaron Rodgers is just do what you're supposed to do. And you might be saying, duh, isn't every quarterback supposed to just do what he's supposed to do? Yes, but success for other quarterbacks is more than just the bare minimum, right? Success for Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Jaden Daniels is much more than just doing the bare minimum, doing what you're supposed to do. But for Aaron Rodgers, it's get the ball in the hands of your playmakers, stay healthy, take care of the football, execute the offense, stay out of the headlines for saying weird stuff, because he's always in the headlines for doing weird things, saying weird things. Just do what you're supposed to do. And if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, if Aaron Rodgers takes care of the football, if Aaron Rodgers gives the ball to a Pat Freiermuth and a Jonnu Smith and a DK Metcalf and a Jalen Warren, then this Pittsburgh Steelers offense can be good enough to let the defense win games. So just do what you're supposed to do, Aaron.
And if he does all of those
out
things,
there, just be normal.
If he does all of those things, at best, he's the 6th best quarterback in his own conference. I'm just saying, two-time MVP or not,
yes,
at best, he's the 6th best quarterback in his own conference. All right, from the Steelers to another team that we're going to talk a lot about this year. The Packers trying to get their way to a Super Bowl, but their shiny new acquisition may have a serious issue. We'll tell you about it next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Micah Parsons is dealing with an L5 facet joint sprain in his back, per Adam Schefter. He may receive an epidural injection prior to Sunday's game versus the Lions if necessary to help him play. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz, and I'll read it for you here. An L4, L5 facet joint sprain in football involves an injury to the small joints in the lower back, often caused by excessive twisting or arching. It's treated with rest, anti-inflammatory medication, physical therapy, and core strengthening. So not a lot of easy solutions to this, and might require an epidural injection in his back. What's the concern level, Caroline, if you're a Packers fan right now?
Well, it's absolutely concerning. When you hear back injury, at least when I hear back injury, I don't care if you're 26-year-old Micah Parsons or if you're in your mid-30s like Matthew Stafford, I get concerned, right? Back issues never seem to get better. You can heal a torn ACL, knock on wood, wouldn't hope that on anybody. You can heal certain injuries, but there are some injuries like a hamstring, like a back, that just linger around. Look, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my word for it, but it is absolutely concerning, seeing as though I'm not going to say I didn't consider the Packers a Super Bowl contender, but I considered them much more of a Super Bowl contender with Micah Parsons than I did pre-Micah Parsons trade. Micah Parsons makes any team, the Dallas Cowboys included, the Green Bay Packers included, makes any team in the National Football League a better team, a scarier team, a team that is more of a pain in the butt to game plan for than without Micah Parsons. So I think that, yes, this is a concern, but again, I don't know how much treatment can make Micah Parsons that much closer to 100%. Is it, hey, a shot in the back here and some physical therapy and some treatment there, and he'll be just as effective as he was in Dallas? Then sure, that at least makes it significantly less of a concern. That actually makes you really fired up that it can be something that's treatable and he can go right back out there and doing his game-wrecking things. But a back always makes me concerned.
So my level of concern, if I'm a Packers fan, is low today if I'm focused on the right things. Like, I'm going to stay consistent with one thing. I sat here and told everybody that Michigan, Ohio State doesn't really matter because what matters is winning a national championship, right? Like in the NFL, if you beat your rival, congratulations, huzzah. What you're really acquiring Micah Parsons for is an attempt to win the Super Bowl, right? So my concern for Micah throughout the course of the season is nominal. Remember, he had to go through a physical to even have this trade go through. So the Packers doctors looked at it and felt fine through the process of his physical. So I don't believe this is something based on that information that it feels like would last all season long. Would I be concerned about week 1 against the Lions? Yeah, heck yeah, I'm concerned about week 1. Does week 1 against the Lions really matter? No, it doesn't. So if I'm a Packers fan, my question now is, if he only plays 75% of the season, am I still a Super Bowl contender? My answer to that is yes. Like, if the Packers start slow because they don't have Micah Parsons, but they get the best of Micah in December, like right now, if he's sore, if it's not working right, especially considering the fact that he had no training camp, I'm not putting him on the field. Who cares if he misses week 1? Who cares if you lose week 1 by 40? Nobody. You didn't acquire Micah Parsons to win week 1. You acquired Micah Parsons to win the Super Bowl. And I'm not going to do anything to risk the Super Bowl. So coming off of a short camp, coming off of a back injury, don't get the injection. Just wait it out. We'll wait and see week 2 how you feel and play you when you're ready to play. Because I care way more about December than I do about September if I'm a Packers fan.
I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are the perfect example of that. That being good at the end of the season is much better than at the beginning. But let's talk about that then, because week 4, the Packers go to Dallas. Micah Parsons will be there for that game. So let's talk about the first 3 weeks of the season. They host Detroit, host Washington, then go to Cleveland. I have my questions about Detroit. Every Lions player will tell you, we won those games, not the coordinators. I understand that 1,000%. But when I look at the credit pie for the Lions' resurgence and the Lions being legitimate Super Bowl contenders over the last couple of years, I give Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, their defense and offensive coordinators respectively, about 50% of that credit pie. Maybe that's fair, maybe that's not, but that's how I view it. So with no Aaron Glenn and no Ben Johnson, how good are the Lions, especially week 1? So I have my questions about Detroit, but we'll put that to the side. Washington. I would much rather face Jaden Daniels with Micah Parsons than without Micah Parsons. So I might say if they don't have Micah Parsons, that's probably a loss in week 2. Then they go to Cleveland. Let's just say the Packers win the week 1 matchup with Detroit because Detroit's still figuring things out, trying to, bridge that gap with losing their coordinators. Let's say they're 1-1 going on the road at Cleveland. That's a game that the Packers should win with Micah Parsons or without Micah Parsons. So if you're 2-1 going into that matchup with Dallas and then you have a bye week 5, I feel pretty darn good, Fitzy.
Now, by the way, you got to bye week 5. Look, no Cowboys fan in the world wants to hear this. No Packers fan in the world wants to hear this. I don't really care about the personal revenge of Micah Parsons versus the Dallas Cowboys. You know what the ultimate revenge for that will be? Winning a playoff game, because that's something that the Cowboys never do. So if there's any chance that this back issue is going to linger, I have no problem sitting Micah until I get through the bye week. I don't care. If I start, because I've got the Browns in there, I think they win that game, even if they only put about half their roster out. So they're going to win that game. Even if they're 1-3 going into the bye, but they get a healthy Micah, they can catch up. I genuinely, I believe that much in Micah, and I believe that much in being patient in this process, because you signed a 26-year-old pass rusher to help you right now win a Super Bowl. Yes, I acknowledge that, but also to help you win a Super Bowl for the next 3 years, since you gave up 2 years first-round draft picks. So you need him on the field, right? And to me, the best way you do that is not to rush him back. Like, while his pride and his ego and everybody's eyeballs and drama may want Micah Parsons to take on the Dallas Cowboys, if I'm the Packers, I don't care about any of that. I care only about what's going to get his health right. And if it's going to take rest, you got to give him a couple of weeks off, and you have to ramp him up. I got an early bye week. There's no harm in my mind with Micah Parsons missing the Cowboys game. I don't care about that. I care way more, again, about having a healthy Micah in December.
And that's when you should. That's absolutely when you should care about Micah Parsons being healthy. It makes me think, though, like, how bad is this injury, right? Like, is it something that's going to leave him out for 5 weeks? Do the Packers feel confident enough that, hey, we can go 0-4 going into the bye and not be worried about it and not be concerned? Because from the Packers standpoint, how can you justify it? I know, if you listen to the fans, soon you'll be sitting with the fans, because you no longer will be making decisions for a football team. But how can the Packers make the splashiest trade in a long time? And then how do you justify not playing that player in the first 4 weeks of the season, including what will probably be the most watched game in week 4 when the Packers go to Dallas? Like, at some point, what's a business decision and what's a football decision? Football decisions are the most important decisions that you can make between September and February. I do understand that. But when you're the Packers front office, your Packers, I was going to say ownership, they don't have that. But when you're the Packers front office, how much do you have to think about how this is a business decision?
I don't think you do, because the Packers went 11-6 last year. And as I continue to say, the Lions do have question marks that I think are very real. The Vikings have a massive question mark in the most important position in all of sports. And I have no idea if Caleb is going to work out and this Ben Johnson-Caleb marriage is going to just sink together right away. Like, there are massive yeah buts for everybody else in their own division. For the Packers, They had the least amount of change coming into this. They still come into this with some level of continuity and a coach that has earned the level of trust that he's now getting. 11-6 last year, like, I'm not willing to talk about the Packers like they were a 9-win team last year. They were an 11-win team. They can compete with the Cowboys without Micah. They can compete with any of the Commanders without Micah. I don't think it's easier to beat the Lions with Micah, but this is a team. If we didn't have the Micah transaction, do I believe that the Packers, as they were currently constructed, would have started the season 1-3? My answer to that is no. I don't think they would have started the season 1-3. So if I don't believe they would have started the season 1-3 without Micah, and now they might be without Micah, they're still a 2-2 or 3-1 team through that first opening split, because they are still a playoff caliber team even without it.
Are the Packers now, let's just say with Micah Parsons, and let's say with a healthy enough Micah Parsons, whether that's 80% or 100%, whatever that might be, are the Packers better than the Eagles?
No, the Eagles are the most slept on Super Bowl champion I can remember. I know a lot of change.
Yeah, like why do we do that? Why do we feel that way about the Eagles? Is it just because
honestly,
they don't have a Patrick Mahomes under center?
Caroline, there are times that I feel like I have to remind even some of my friends that are football diehards, hey, the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl last year. Like, it's remarkable to me that we have just forgotten about a Super Bowl champion. Most of the time, I'll be the old man in the room. Like, I used to camp out at the grocery store and wait for the football magazine previews to come out. And every year I get so bored because you'd read the previews and it was always like, this team's going to repeat, and it never happened. And I feel like this is the first time I can remember in modern NFL years where suddenly I'm not even hearing repeat conversation for an Eagles team that they took the Chiefs back behind the shed and they reminded them who the adult in the room is. I mean, they just whooped that butt at a level of don't sass me, boy, and put him back out, right? Like, there was a level of, oh my God, to me, it's a stunning level of just butt kicking that we saw, and we're not giving the Eagles nearly enough credit for it.
I'm with you. And I think that's so unfair. I think it is. I understand, as we say on this show, fair is where a pig wins a ribbon. But it is still just totally so unfair and so unjustified considering how much talent is on that roster. But speaking of NFC teams that I think, maybe it's unfair. Deron Bland just got an extension from the Dallas Cowboys, 4 years, $92 million. And when you look at the highest paid cornerbacks in the National Football League, Deron Bland is right up there with Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., Pat Surtain, the reigning defensive player of the year, Jalen Ramsey. Fitz, maybe I'm so off base here. Speaking of unfair, maybe I'm unfairly saying this. Deron Bland is not the same caliber of cornerback as all of those guys that I just named, and he's getting paid like he is. And what's the old adage in the NFL? You can pay a guy a certain amount. That doesn't mean that he's going to execute to that amount.
Yeah, Deron Bland, by the way, one of the worst scoring corners in the NFL in run stop defense. And it was just a few days ago that Jerry Jones was sitting at a podium saying, well, now we can stop the run. Hey, Jerry, pay who you want to pay. Just be honest about what you're doing. Like, don't Wizard of Oz me at this point. I'm paying attention to the man behind the curtain. All right.
Jerry says a lot of things, Fitz.
There's no doubt about that. It's the joy of the Cowboys. Let's get to the joy from some of the weekend coming up next. We're going to take you scrolling through some of the best moments you might have missed from an epic weekend in sports. We'll do it next on Yahoo Sports Daily. That would be Nicolas Cage. Getting ready for his role is John Madden. All over social media from the weekend caught our eye. Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Caroline, are we excited here on Yahoo Sports Daily for the John Madden movie coming out here?
I am so excited for this. I love sports movies. John Madden is a certified legend. So, yes, I'm very excited for this. I don't love this. It just looks like Nick Cage in a fat suit with a bad wig on. But I'm excited for the movie.
Yeah, Christian Bale as Al Davis looks elite, though. I will say that.
Elite. That was great casting.
I am so out on this. Like, I have no interest. Sports movies already suck. And if I want to see a movie about John Madden, there's plenty of documentaries. There's plenty of good books. Go out, read one. It's like, look, if I want drama, there was plenty in his actual life. I don't need the dramatic replay. This is no different than, like, I no longer watch any crime show that has, dramatic replays instead. I only watch like true crime body cam shows. Like, I want to see the actual body cam footage of a Karen at a traffic stop. Like, that's what I want to see.
Just
I don't want to
use your
see a reenactment.
imagination, Fitz.
I don't want reenactments. No, I don't want reenactments. All right. As I've said many times on this, there's not a single sports movie that's ever been made that is worth watching. And that will include one about my beloved
Raiders.
Raiders.
So not true. That is not true in the slightest. They're all worth it. And yes, documentaries are going to have a different level of realness because it's real, but it brings you back to a time. It's overly dramatic and it pulls at the heartstrings and it makes you feel something, especially with John Madden. I mean, are you kidding me? I will absorb any piece of media, documentary, book, podcast, real life reenactment kind of movie that has anything to do with John Madden.
We will have a future conversation about whether an audiobook counts as reading a book. That's just another millennial disagreement. But
it's listening to a podcast, and that's also fine.
That's fine. Yeah, just don't tell me you read a book. We all watched Lee Corso this weekend. Got to give a shout out. Let's go scrolling. Let's go scrolling through some of the best moments from social media that we saw. See me scrolling, Yahoo Sports Daily. We love to do this, get you through. Lee Corso went a perfect 6 for 6 in his final picks. $100 parlay on that would have netted $10,297. Absolute wizard. Every team he was ever affiliated with as a player or coach won over the weekend, and over 5 million people tuned in to see him don the headgear on ESPN networks alone. Over 5 million people. More people than watch finals matchups in major sports tuned in to watch Lee Corso.
It was so well done. I think it's very, very hard to give a send-off that is appropriate for someone who is such a legend that Lee Corso is. But I thought ESPN did a fantastic job. I thought Fox Sports did a very classy move in putting Lee Corso's final headgear pick on their airwaves. They're competitors, but I think they understood that, look, this is a legend, and we can put our ratings wars away. And what I also thought was great about this was Lee Corso picked Florida State because he played at Florida State. That was an allegiance type of pick, that he wasn't going to go out picking against his alma mater, even when everyone, Nick Saban, Reese Davis, Pat McAfee, Kirk Herbstreit, they all picked Alabama. I picked Alabama. So many of us picked Alabama, but Lee Corso stayed true to his roots, and he was right. So I thought it was just a fabulous day and a fabulous weekend, getting to salute and say goodbye to one of the best to ever do it. He changed college football.
From one of the best ever do it to one of the best Photoshops I've ever seen. This isn't real, but I want it to be real. This was circulating everywhere. Ryan Day with the nipple piercing. I don't know. Obviously, we found out later this was a Photoshop, but I kind of, either way, I like the serious look on his face, like the juxtaposition of the serious look with the concept of, Photoshop nipple ring. I'm in for this.
I reject that it was Photoshop. I choose to live in a world where Ryan Day does have his nipples pierced. Because look, being a college football coach is hard. Being the head coach at Ohio State is even harder. So if he wants, to just let his freak flag fly away from the field and just enjoy being kind of like an alt, kind of style kind of guy, then great, go do it. You do your thing, and I will salute you. I will not yuck anybody's yum. If getting your nipples pierced and go doing your groovy little thing away from football is what you need to keep you grounded, then do it. So I reject the idea that this was Photoshop. We need more nipple piercings in football. You can
I
quote me on
want it to
that.
be real. I want it to be real. The opposite of real would be fantasy football. Real for all of us. But take a look at some of this. This came up over the weekend. Loved it. It's the most popular fantasy football team names across the landscape from Yahoo Sports. And what's interesting to me is that it just shows you these are the 10 most popular team names. You know that whoever came up with Prestige Worldwide is like, this is a funny name without any concept of like, yep, none of this is original.
Laporta Potty is good. I like Laporta Potty. To Infinity and Bijan is good. Maybe it's not the most original. Nakua Matata, you Googled that. You chat GPT'd that. Hot Chub Time Machine, it's good. We've been doing it. I just recently named my fantasy team Huda Neighbors. Nabers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Like, I just name my fantasy team every year Fitz's team. That's how boring I am. Like, there's no
Fitz, you
there's
hate
no fun.
movies. You don't have a fun fantasy team. You
Correct.
are no fun. You are a vacuum of fun. You are sucking up all the fun
Dead
from
inside.
everything.
I'm dead
Come
inside.
on.
You are not the first woman in my life to ever tell me I'm dead inside.
I just magic.
No,
That's
because
your
Fitzpatrick.
name. It was a
No,
nickname
Fitzpatrick
given to
okay.
someone else.
Yeah. By the way, I have a problem with that because my last name is only Fitz. He had Fitzpatrick, and he goes by Fitz. I couldn't go by Patrick. Okay, fine. Speaking of names, wide receiver DeRealis Clark, all right, had a touchdown that helped Kent State end a 21-game losing streak. Now, why is this substantial? Why are we telling you about DeRealis Clark? Because DeRealis Clark has a badass name. And this show has decided that we are going to honor the men in football that have badass names with our own custom award show. We have not cleared this with anyone, but we are doing it. We're getting a trophy made, and it will be called the DeBrickashaw. And that is in honor of DeBrickashaw Ferguson, who inspired the Key and Peele skit about wild names. So DeBrickashaw is going to be awarded on this show at the end of the year. DeRealist gets a nomination for DeBrickashaw because he had a wild game.
DeBrickashaw Ferguson, the OG college football name that inspired, the college football all-name team every single year, which DeRealis Clark is obviously on. Mobility, Pig Cage, General Booty, all up there. All contenders for the DeBrickashaw for this year. I love that we're doing this. We need to give more credit to guys with good names. They don't have to be the best player out there. I don't care. Do you have a good name? That was blessed upon you.
I like to yell General Booty every time I twerk. Speaking of good things, this is amazing. Bill's star wide receiver, Khalil Shakir, helped to save over 19 dogs from euthanasia yesterday. That's via the Nickel City Canine Rescue. Absolutely incredible moment here. You and I are both obviously huge supporters of dogs. We're huge adopt people here. This, I gotta admit, got me a little choked up, Caroline. This is beautiful.
This is the best way to spend your money. There are no undeserving charities, but a humane society is one of the absolute best. So shout out to Khalil Shakir for using his power and money and influence for good. And I hope those sweet babies find a cozy home soon.
Yeah, and absolutely incredible work by Nickel City Canine Rescue. They do have a link out on his social media showing how you can adopt the dogs that he has helped to save. Really incredible and beautiful moment. Obviously, this is going to be a massive week. We've got celebrity guests for you this week. We've got a ton of NFL action to break down for you. It is going to be wild, and we appreciate you hanging out with us. Come back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, for more Yahoo Sports Daily. For Caroline Fenton, I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for hanging out with us today.